Welcome back. So let's talk about our gymnosperms now. We talked about how pollen and seeds help our seeding plants begin to be able to colonize land. And these are going to form two sister clades, our gymnosperms and our angiosperms. Our gymnosperms are the seed plants that have more naked seeds. You'll notice that's in quotation mark. It means their seeds are exposed on the sporophylls. They're usually going to form cones, so these would be conifers. Most gymnosperms are conifers, although there are some that are not. Conifers would include pines, firs, redwoods, the trees you think of as Christmas trees. These are all going to be gymnosperms. In our gymnosperms, we still see a miniaturization of our gametophytes. We discussed that in our last video. They produce seeds that are resistant and dispersible, which we also discussed in our last video. And they produce pollen, which is airborne and only relies on air instead of water to bring gametes together, also discussed in our last video. So I'm going to play a video that goes through the life cycle of a pine, but please feel free to pause this slide to take notes to help focus in on what's important. I have several slides. I'm just going to pause on each one, and you are welcome to pause the video, take your notes to help you focus on that video. Here's more life cycle of a pine. Pause as long as you need. Page 3, life cycle of a pine. Pause as long as you need. And now we're going to watch a video that goes through all of those last 3 slides. So please use those last 3 slides, your notes from there, to help focus in on what's going on in our pine life cycle.
Gymnosperms are seed plants that have no enclosed chambers around their seeds. Most gymnosperms are conifers, cone-bearing trees such as the pine shown here. The male and female parts of a conifer are found in separate locations and structures on the tree. A pine tree represents the diploid sporophyte phase of the life cycle. Haploid male and female gametophytes develop in cones on adult sporophytes. Gametophytes produce eggs and sperm. Pollination brings gametophytes together, and an egg is fertilized. The fertilized egg develops into an embryo, protected and nourished within a seed. The seed germinates and grows into an adult sporophyte, completing the pine life cycle.
Okay, how does the pine life cycle reflect 5 adaptations common to all seed plants? You'll need to pay attention not only to what we just talked about, but also to those adaptations we discussed in our last video. There are 4 extant phyla of gymnosperms. Please recall this term. If you do not remember what extant means, pause, look it up. Okay, 4 extant phyla of gymnosperms. Cycadophyta, these are our cycads. Ginkgophyta, these are our ginkgos. I have a couple of ginkgo trees in my yard, and one of them that produces fruit, and oh my goodness, that is a pretty gross tree. Ctidophyta, which would be these here, and then coniferophyta, which are our conifers. Cycadophyta have about 350 living species. They produce very large cones, you can see in this image. They have palm-like leaves, and they have flagellated sperm. So this is not like most other seed plants. Most other seed plants, their sperm have lost their flagella. However, in the cycads, even though their sperm are flagellated, they still are carried by the wind. That flagella is not used to make it motile. Cycads thrive during the Mesozoic. This is kind of one of the pictures of plants you always see if you see a picture of the Mesozoic era. Today, they're some of the most endangered plant groups. Ginkgophyta has 1 species, Ginkgo biloba. They also have flagellated sperm, also like cycads. However, they still don't need that flagella to make them motile because they rely on wind for pollination. They're really good at tolerating air pollution, so they are popular in cities. They produce beautiful yellow leaves during the fall. However, these fleshy cones, oh, they smell so terrible when they decay. It smells like dog vomit when it falls off the tree. It is terrible. There are 3 phylum of netophytes: the netums, the Welwitschia, and the ephedra. These are pretty much tropical or desert species. So this is a little bit different. These are going to be kept in pretty much places where it's very warm. So if we look at these 3 different groups, Welwitschia that has one species, Welwitschia mirabilis, the only species in this genus. It occurs in deserts in southwestern Africa. So this is not a plant I've ever seen, and if you haven't traveled to Africa, you haven't seen this one either. The plants can live for thousands of years. They produce these large strap-like leaves, and they produce ovulate cones on stalks. Ephedra, if you have heard of ephedrine is a medicine that's used as a decongestant. So if you have like a stuffy nose or something, you might have taken ephedrine. It's produced by this plant, ephedra. There's about 40 species in this genus, and they also live in arid regions. Arid meaning dry, deserty regions. They're found worldwide. Netophyta, the netums, have about 35 species. These are tropical trees, shrubs, and vines. They are mainly found in Africa and Asia. And their leaves look similar to flowering plants, and the seeds look something kind of like a fruit. And then phylum Coniferophyta. This has about 600 species, largest phylum of Gymnosperms. It includes things like junipers, pine trees, European larch, Douglas fir, and the great sequoia trees. Most of these produce woody cones, which is where their name Coniferophyta comes from. Some of them have fleshy cones. Their leaves are more needle-like or scale-like. If you think of your Christmas tree, they're more of pokey needles. Most are evergreens, which is why they're popular as Christmas trees, because they're still green at Christmas time. Okay, so you should be able to tell me the 4 extant phyla of Gymnosperms. I will see you in our next video where we'll talk about our Angiosperms, which is where we start to get into our beautiful flowers. Okay, let me know if you have any questions. I'll see you later. Bye.